You're listening to Three's a Crowd, the North East Footy podcast, with Rye for Borough, Steve for Newcastle United, and Ted for Sunderland.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. We are all here. We are all on time. Nothing to worry about whatsoever. None of us were late. None of us stuffed up the Australian time difference. And Ted, luckily you made it. I mean, we were waiting on Ted, everybody. I'm so sorry about him, I tell you.
Absolute BS.
Welcome to
If
Three's
you're on
a Crowd.
time, you're already 15 minutes late, my dad used to say.
It's true. That's a good point. It's a good point. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to you all around this beautiful world of ours. Welcome to the Three's a Crowd podcast, the only Northeast football podcast where we bring Sunderland, Middlesbrough, and Newcastle together to have a bit of banter and a bit of laugh. We hope you've all had a fantastic week. It's been a massive, massive week of football, especially if you're a Middlesbrough fan. Oh my God, dare to dream, Borough fans, dare to dream. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got to look back before we look forward. We've got a big game for Newcastle to talk about for this afternoon. Sunderland played yesterday, as did Middlesbrough, but we also had some midweek fixtures for Middlesbrough and Newcastle to talk about. But first and foremost, it's a big, big good morning to you, Mr. Teddy Mackams.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Apologies, I'm still not up and running in the new place just yet, so you're going to have to tolerate me being on the mobile phone and looking terribly unprofessional. But at least I was on time.
That's a good morning to you, Mr. Steve Wraith.
Yeah, I'm still in bed, as you can see. So I just thought I would do it lying in my pit for a change. Completely unprofessional, a bit like somebody who doesn't turn up on time. Really, it's starting to spread through the ranks.
As you can see, one of us was maybe running a little bit late or completely stuffed up the time zone. Wasn't me, though, guys. Wasn't me. Don't worry about that. Let's go backwards before we go forwards. Massive week for Newcastle United, Steve. Obviously, we spoke about the Premier League game against Wolves. We were all very unoptimistic. It turned out to be a 0-0 draw in the end, mate. But coming up against Wolves, you went in, obviously, with a little bit of hesitance. Obviously, you were predicted a draw. I think you said 1-1 going in. 1-1. And look, I did watch the game and I thought Newcastle had chances to win it and probably should have won it. But in the end, obviously settling for a 0-0 draw. How did you make out for that one, mate?
It was a reluctance to change the style. That's what annoyed Newcastle fans, I think. You go to Wolves, who, let's face it, are on a good run. They did well against Man City yesterday. Man City
held their own.
Unpicked the locks and managed to get a 2-0 win against them yesterday. But it was, again, a good performance from Rob Edwards' team. So, yeah, look, Newcastle are struggling against the low block. It's been publicised quite heavily, in the media and across social media. And that's what's leading to, I guess, just a bit of anxiety amongst Newcastle fans. There was a lot of expectancy at the start of the season after a Carabao Cup win. And we all genuinely felt that this season would be our season, would do well, would build on the success of last year. But of course, there was that kind of thoughts in the back of your mind that it would be slightly more different with a Champions League campaign and we would need a bigger squad. And I think at the start of the season, we're all happy with the squad. But, it's just taken a while for these players to bed in. That's the problem. The signs now that some of them are starting to come to life. And, obviously we've had injuries as well, which haven't helped. But it's part and parcel of it for every side. And I think, genuinely speaking, against Wolves, it was just the fact that they're bottom of the league and, you expect to go down there and get 3 points. And when you don't, it's going to be disappointing. But on current form, I predicted a draw and I took no pleasure in being right. I would rather Newcastle had won 2 or 3-0. But it was just the reluctance by Eddie Howe to change it. And I mean, look, it's his job on the line. Nobody can tell Eddie Howe what to do or his team. From his point of view, he will probably be happy with the draw under the current circumstances down there. And I know that'll anger some people, but for me, would it have done any harm to change it slightly and bring on the two forwards together and give 20 minutes of Voldemar and Wissa having a go at the club, having a go at Wolves last week? Would it have made any difference? Would Newcastle have been able to get the win and that was, that's the only disappointing thing I think for me. That, there was some performances which stood out there, but maybe some of the players had their minds on the midweek fixture. Maybe some of them are thinking about the Champions League. And, let's not forget that despite it feeling as if it's a poor season with Newcastle, it's still all to play for. Champions League is still there to play for. We might be 2-0 down in the Carabao Cup and having to go to Man City, but we're still in the tie. Anything can happen in that game, especially the way that Man City are, completely unpredictable week after week after week. And, yes, we've got a hard time in the FA Cup, but we're still in the FA Cup. So, look, Newcastle are playing on all fronts. The Champions League, of course, they did themselves a huge favour this week as well. And we've got the Champions League fixture against PSG this week. We're still going to have, a part to play in the Champions League, which is going to bring us in more money, which is great. So, look, we're still firing on all fronts at the moment. So, disappointing result. Disappointed that Eddie didn't change it in a more positive way. But, we've moved on from that. We've had a game midweek, and now we've got a game to look forward to today against one of our rivals.
It's going to be an interesting game, that's for sure. Big talk this week on social media, and obviously Eddie, especially in his press conferences, Steve, about PSR. It seems to be the toxic word that keeps getting brought up about PSR and how Newcastle can't do anything because of PSR. But to look in the summer and see the amount of money that was spent on Walter Mata, Wissa, Ramsey, and the likes, I mean, there's a few fans that I've noticed on social media, Newcastle fans this is, that are criticizing Eddie's, I guess when he goes into these press conferences, his willingness to blame PSR when he has had the money to spend, as you saw in the summer. Are you on the side of you understand where Eddie is and how frustrating PSR is, or are you on the, no, you have spent big money, what are you doing?
I completely understand where Eddie's coming from. I'm sick of him mentioning PSR. We all know it's there. You don't need to reiterate it. Maybe he's just answering the questions, answering a question in that way to sicken the journalists who keep asking the same questions, But look, roll on next year when it won't be PSR, it'll be SCR. At least we'll be seeing something different for the next 2 or 3 years as to why we can't invest. But yeah, I mean, it's again with the investment. Newcastle have spent money in the summer, but just remember, it wasn't Eddie Howe who sat there in a car park, with his checkbook and a brown envelope and did the deals. He doesn't do the deals. He's a coach. He coaches the players that he's given. He'll have a chance to say yay or nay, I'm sure. And I'm sure he'll have a chance to mention, his potential signings. But, does Eddie's list get pushed to the forefront? Is it his, are these the players he wants? Well, no, they're not. Newcastle wanted Hugo Ekitike to replace Alexander Isak. Newcastle then wanted João Pedro to replace Alexander Isak. Newcastle then wanted Benjamin Sesko to replace Alexander Isak. We didn't get any of those players. We got Walter Mata, and that's the problem as well. Newcastle United were rebuffed at every single turn in the transfer window. As for the other players, Ramsey, tidy player. I think everybody can see the potential in him, and I think he'll come good. I've said that before on here. And Anthony Elanga finally shown signs, that there's a player in there. And fair play to the Newcastle fans who, over recent games, have been singing his name because that gives him the confidence, that boosts his morale, and hopefully gives him an opportunity to rediscover his form. And maybe we will see a player develop over the back end of the second half of the season. But yeah, look, the PSR, it's always going to be a problem. Overall, Newcastle, with the people that they sold and the people that they bought, I think their overall spend worked out at about £102 million, and all of the talk this morning and over the last few days has been that Newcastle are keeping their powder dry. They are still aware of the PSR issues, but they want to have a good summer. So the idea is, don't spend if we don't have to in this window, and that gives you a nice, in the words of Alan Oliver and John Gibson at the Evening Chronicle, it gives you a war chest for this summer. So let's hope that that's the case, and that's what Newcastle do. But yeah, interesting week. It started with a huge negative last weekend, finished on a positive during the week, and we want to finish on a high today as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a massive, excuse me, it's going to be a massive game today, obviously, to see how the Premier League form continue. Obviously, a massive, massive performance in the Champions League. I mean, there's no worries there whatsoever. It seems that everyone's firing, and Wissa getting a fantastic goal in the Champions League midweek as well to wrap up Newcastle looking backwards, Steve. Obviously, coming off the Wolves performance, I think there would have been, rightly so, a few Newcastle fans going in a little bit worried, even though it was PSG, and I know Teddy said it last week that PSG are nowhere near what the PSV, I do apologize, that PSV used to be. I still thought it was a tough performance, but it was one that Newcastle that seemed to relish when it's a Champions League night.
Strange, because I mean, I didn't anticipate such a good performance from Newcastle, and there was some great work by Lewis Hall, but he was superb. Tonali was back to his snarling best at times and putting the effort in, and Wissa got man of the match. I really found that a strange. There was an assist, there was a goal in there. He got into the right place at the right time, but I didn't see it as a man of the match performance, and I'm sure he was a bit bemused. But yeah, I thought Lewis Hall was he was my standout. But I know that there's others. Sven Botman, another powerful display from the Dutchman, and you've just got to look at overall the frustrating thing again for Newcastle fans is why on earth can Newcastle do that in the Champions League, at St James's Park and not do it at Wolverhampton Wanderers away from home in the Premier League. That's the frustrating thing, because that kind of effort that they put in against PSV, that should be a norm. That's what we should be seeing every week, and that's the frustrating thing, I think, for us. So let's hope that Eddie and the boys can build on this. We've had a few false dawns this year already. We've had a few false dawns where we've had a great result, and then we thought, right, we can build on this, and this will be the start of our run. But then it's been halted by a defeat or a draw against what we would consider a poorer team, a lesser opposition, a team struggling, and that's what we need to get right. We need to get the consistency right. So yeah, but a great result, great performance, great to see Newcastle now got this opportunity, at the worst to have a playoff game, a leg at home, a leg away, and an opportunity, yes, to make some more money, but hopefully to progress. And I know that sounds bonkers, but let's not forget, it's only a few years ago that Tottenham Hotspur, again, another team, perennial loser, really always the bridesmaid, never the bride until last season, of now, they got to the Champions League final and played Liverpool. So we're in this you're in this position where if the cards fall, I'm not saying you'll win it, but you've got that chance of getting into the quarter-final, getting into the semi-final, or even, dare I say it, getting into the final. And Eddie will be thinking of that. The lads, the coaching staff will be thinking of that. You don't just come this far just to make money. The lads aren't thinking about the money. The lads are thinking about success. They're thinking about where they want to be in their careers. They're thinking about where they want to be at the end of the season. And they've already got one dust collector in the house, they want another one. But, that's not me saying we'll win the Champions League. I'm just saying that there will be ambition within that team. And it's human nature, isn't it? Human nature now is the squad that won the Carabao Cup will be going, actually, we've done that. Why don't we go for the FA Cup now? Why don't we go for the Champions League? Why don't we go for the Premier League? That's human nature. You want a different medal this season. So, look, there's still plenty to play for. It's very hard, though, as a football fan to remain positive after after you see a Wolves game. And I understand the negativity. Wrong. I wish people just wouldn't aim at the players on social media. Do what I do, do what the older generation do. Just chat to your mates about it. Stick it in your WhatsApp group. There's nothing wrong sticking it in your WhatsApp group going blah, 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 this player, blah, 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 that player. But don't go onto Twitter and have a pop at them and say, you were useless, blah, blah, blah.
I called Borough fans out for that this week as well.
It's wrong. Yeah. So don't do that. But anyway, listen, enough of me in Newcastle. It's been a busy week for Borough and Sunderland as well. So over to you, right?
Thank you, Steve. Obviously, mate, it has been a massive week, and we've got a game to talk about for Newcastle fans coming up as well. It hasn't been a massive week for Middlesbrough fans, and a massive midweek performance as well. It's been 4 on the run now for Kim Hellberg's mighty Middlesbrough, who are bouncing in the Championship, looking to join their brethren in the Premier League. Honestly, lads, it has been something of a turnaround. We saw when Kim Hellberg first came in, we had a fantastic start, and everyone was that, that new manager bounce, and the negativity of Rob Edwards leaving, I think it emphasized that a bit as well. And I think there was a fair few players within the squad as well that were quite frustrated with the departure and stuff like that. And we had that new manager bounce, and then that sort of went away. And then we had some bad losses to Bristol City and to Hull after beating them 4-0 as well. So it was a big sort of turnaround of events. And then again, he's managed to bring it back, and it's been fantastic. And we saw yesterday blowing away Preston 4-0, but also a massive, massive midweek game against Stoke, where you don't travel to Stoke on a Wednesday night and get too much from that ground. I tell you what, and it was cold, it was wet, it was yuck. And the game and the football, it was equally the same. Sorba Thomas, Stokes winner, saying that Middlesbrough just play for the sake of playing. Sum up whatever that means. I mean, if you guys can decipher whatever the hell that means, Sorba Thomas, please feel free to come on with Jermaine Pennant as well. We'd love to have you both on the podcast anytime soon. But it's been a fantastic week for Middlesbrough fans. We sit in second. Teddy boy, you've been too quiet. I want to hear from you. Firstly and foremost, Teddy boy, you need to tell me whether if we're only just doing 45, because I did write a note here, but you weren't. And then do you need 45? And I wrote, I love you. And then I texted you as well, but you're on your phone. See how professional I am. And also, so you need to answer me that, and then also tell me what you made of Middlesbrough, mate, sitting second in the championship. But not only that, mate, Alan Brown in the past 3 games has had back-to-back man of the match performances. 3 man of the match performances. So Middlesbrough fans are saying he's playing that good, and now with Xhaka's injury, is there a chance? Tell Middlesbrough fans right now, 1, that Alan Brown won't be recalled. 2, that you need 45 or an hour, whatever you want to give them. And 3, how Middlesbrough is faring.
45 is great for me, thank you. Yes, really professional. We'll edit that out once it goes onto YouTube.
Done.
Rest assured, Middlesbrough fans, I don't think Alan Brown's going to get recalled. For the simple fact that very, very, very good championship player. And we knew that when we got him from Preston. He was their skipper for a long time. He was part of the more experienced clique of players that we had in the Championship last season as well. But he's just not going to make the grade as a Premier League player. The same as Dan Neil won't either, who looks like, to all intents and purposes, he's off. Funnily enough, wouldn't be a bad one for Middlesbrough to try and get in.
Yeah, not wrong.
But there we go. Alan Brown
Rangers,
is,
I believe,
is
Dan Neil.
Sorry?
Off to Rangers, sorry to interrupt, I believe, Dan Neil.
There's a couple of rumours. Yesterday, somebody was saying that West Ham are taking a look, and that baffles me a little bit, that one.
Not wrong. Yeah.
I don't think Dan. In fact, Dan Neil didn't even travel with the squad yesterday, so it's it's looking like he's off somewhere. But there's rumours of Germany and all sorts. But back to Borough, back to Alan Brown. He'll be he's somebody who I think you should definitely look to get in permanently. Certainly from the point of view that he will help that side, generate points in the Championship without a shadow of a doubt. He's bagged a few goals for you now, I think, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah,
he's not just putting in decent midfield performances,
mate, he's killing it.
Filling in at right back.
Mm-hmm.
Mate, he's doing really well, and I'm happy for him.
He's everywhere, and he's fantastic. And he obviously played Preston North End, where you took him from after he had 200 odd appearances for Preston North End, whose fans were absolutely all over him, by the way, and slating him for leaving still. And there's still some bitterness there on the way he left and stuff like that. But mate, honestly, I cannot tell you how important it has been from both of your clubs. One in Matt Target, but Alan Brown as well. Both mature age recruits on loan, one from Sunderland, one from Newcastle. I can't believe it. And they've honestly carried us. Matt Target yesterday had a fantastic ball off his left foot that landed on Alan Brown's big right toe, smacked it in the back of the net. I mean, it's from Newcastle to Sunderland. And I can't thank you enough. Next year, right, we'll probably need Wissa, Xhaka as well, if you could sort that out for us next year when we come up to the Premier League. But at the moment, Alan Brown and Matt Target have been fantastic, Teddy. And as I said, Alan Brown, 3 man of matches in the row. It's good to know that, honestly, that Sunderland don't think they won't be recalling. Let's talk about Sunderland while we got you as well, because they had a bad performance yesterday against West Ham, sadly. We were talking about it. There was some crowd some crowd issues as well with Xhaka, and you cleared it up for me as well. We saw a lot on social media as well, getting around at Xhaka, and it seemed to be mostly the West Ham fans. But a bad performance yesterday against West Ham. But is it a bad performance, Ted, when I think honestly, and it's crazy to say, but I think West Ham are on a bit of a resurgence here. They've made 2 massive signings. They're clearing a bit of deadwood. They're looking to recruit heavily in January. They're not happy with where they are. I think we've always sort of agreed that West Ham being in the bottom 3 probably wasn't whereabouts that we would have predicted them to be at all this season. But a tough game yesterday ending in 3-1, mate. How did you see that one?
Yeah, obviously the biggest shock of the day was finding out that Jack is going to be out for looks like 2 weeks that he's going to miss. Apparently, he was carrying a knock prior to that that was then exacerbated in last week's game against Palace. Yeah, Palace.
Palace.
So yeah, it's that was a bit of a blow. But what we can't do is start and rely on one player and be a one-man team. That's the worst possible situation. Regis Labrise made a judgment call. He played Trey Hume in midfield, which is something he's kind of done as a byproduct of his game, because as a fullback he plays this modern fullback role where he tucks into midfield. He was also given the captain's armband yesterday, and I just think it was the wrong call. And I think at halftime Regis Labrise realised that. I'll come back to that. Hume was all over, mate. He had an absolute disaster of a 45 minutes. Great lad, and he doesn't deserve some of the stick he's getting on social media. I find it actually pretty disgusting, some of the flack he's getting, because the same idiots who were given a keyboard warrior will be cheering on when he puts in a massive tackle next week, and he will. He'll bounce back from it. I just think it looked like, and both you lads have seen this in the past with certain players, the captain's armband is too heavy for some people.
Yep.
And I honestly think being asked to play in a midfield role, which, an official midfield role, and wear the captain's armband, I just think it looked too much for him. Regis Labrise is a relatively young coach. He's learning all the time as well. And we just looked out of sorts and pretty lost for ideas for that first 45 minutes. What positives we can take from that? Before I do that, Mundle as well. Mundle was really, he just didn't put the work in that you would expect. It's all right, going forward, but when you're walking back into defensive positions, that aggravates me, and it aggravates fans as well, because that's not what the success of this season so far has been built on. It's about graft, and it's about getting back to help out your teammates. So it was out of sorts. The third goal was absolutely outstanding. That just was not getting stopped. It was a very soft penalty that Trey Hume gave away in the first goal as well. To be honest, giving Somerville the chance to get up for a header is just. Nah, you don't do that. It was uncharacteristic, and it was disappointing, to be honest with you. The second 45, though, and this is where I will take some positives from this. Some Sunderland fans will call us a bit of a rosy, as they call them, rose-tinted spectacles and all that. Regis Labrise immediately saw what was wrong, and he made changes. I don't mind that, because we're learning. We're a newly promoted side. The Premier League is a totally different beast to what it used to be when we were there before. So, he made the changes. He took Hume off, he took Mundle off, and he took Reinildo off as well, who was very lucky to be on the pitch, by the way. For me, absolutely 2 yellows, and he should have been off. He was one very, very lucky boy. And he's got that in him down, just to be a little bit reckless. Because
I was going to say he has. We have seen this already from Ronaldo during the first half of the season. But I watched the highlights, obviously, just to make sure that I'm all over it. And I thought he was very lucky, even to remain on that pitch. Very, very lucky.
I totally agree. Absolutely agree. All you can ask of the team, 3-0 down at half time, the game is pretty much done. As much as I was in our little admin page on the Facebook page that we've got among the fans, I was kind of going, "Yous are all being, a bunch of negative so and so's." It's 16 minutes and we're 1-0 down, 2-0 down, 3-0 down. You're going, "Oh, it's over with. This is damage limitation now." all you can expect from that team is to go out and try and win the second half.
Yeah.
And we did. And there were signs there. Some people saying Diarra should have started. You could probably make a claim of that, but you've got to bear in mind, he hasn't played a lot of football for us.
No.
By the time he got back from injury after about 3 games into the season, he was off to AFCON. And then, that's the first time he's really travelled with us and got back into the squad. So, Regis Labrise is a big believer in connection and everybody sort of knowing what everyone's jobs are. So I think we will see Diarra back in midfield in replace of Xhaka. I thought he looked very lively. He was instrumental in getting the goal back. Brobby, if we get crosses like that into Brobby, he's going to get us a lot more goals.
Yeah.
Like I say, it disappointing. I mean, it was. I know lads who travel home and away, and Adam, who's probably watching right now, was kind of like, yeah, look, it was very, very disappointing. But we're going to get that. It's the biggest and best league in the world, and anybody can beat everyone. You're right in what you're saying. West Ham's shown a bit of a resurgence, and they've got the playing staff to do that. They've got the coach to do that as well. More importantly, Nuno's a tremendous coach. He really is. He's top draw. They've got very good players. Jared Bowen, I thought, was excellent. All right, we had an off day, but he was on form. I thought he was great. I thought Somerville looked very lively for them as well. So they've got the playing staff to get out of the position they're in without a shadow of doubt. I hope they don't, because of their scumbag fans. They are, that whole thing that happened on the touchline yesterday was some distasteful stuff aimed towards Mukiele. I'm sure it'll probably come out anyway. I'm not going to say too much more about it because, to be honest, they're not worth the breath. Xhaka was protecting his teammate, and that's all it is. You've got some absolute wazzock of a West Ham fan giving it the old 5-knuckle shuffle signs while holding on to his young kid. You just think, mate, the scumbags. They're a scumbag club full of scumbag fans, and I hope they get relegated.
Well, that's it for West Ham fans watching the podcast. If you want to tune in at all or
come
get
at me.
Ted's address, send me a message. Ted, quick question before we get to Troll of the Week, mate. One from David who said, Ted, a few Sky stories are now starting to come out about first-team players. Obviously, lads, we're heading into the last week of January, the last time that teams can add or remove any players, and they're going to have to name their final squad for the final push of the season. But it is a good one from David who's asked, if there's a few first-team players at Sunderland being targets for others, do you expect to lose any this week?
I think Isidore will move. I really do. But I think that's only if we have a replacement. What we need is, I think we need, ideally, a couple of wide players and a striker. Dan Neil will obviously move. I think Anthony Patterson will go as well. That's looking pretty likely.
Mundell after yesterday?
Sorry?
Mundell as well, after yesterday?
No, that was an off day for Mundell. I think he'll get a kick up the backside, which he needs. Bearing in mind, we've got Adingra, we've now got Talby back as well from AFCON.
That's what I was going to say, because I just don't think Mundell's, because you've got Talby, you've also got, obviously, Adingra. I mean, I feel like Mundell isn't anywhere near the first-team choice when you're all fit.
He's got the potential, and that's what's on his side. And there's definitely something about him that can play in the Premier League. I massively believe that. I think he's a better player than Jack Clark. I really do, genuinely. But give him time. He needs to kick up the backside after yesterday. That was a bit lazy from him, if I'm being perfectly honest. Or it looked lazy. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not a professional footballer. I don't know. Maybe the lad's just not having a good day. So yeah, I think the biggest one will be probably Isidore. Apparently, Paris FC putting something in the region of €20 million deal together.
Oh wow! There you go. Well,
which
one to watch
something
there.
like 17 million clear profit.
Just on the Sunderland game, to be honest, with Somerville as well, the West Ham fans have been pretty disenchanted with him, but you can never say goodbye to talent. And I thought the small town boy did very, very well.
Yeah, no, Somerville played
a Jimmy Somerville reference. I love that.
Guy.
Oh, there was three. There was three, Ted. There was three. Listen back to it.
He's gotten three in. Well, it's going to be a massive week to see
Hats
what
off to you,
happens with
Mr.
Sunderland in the transfer window. Middlesbrough fans, some names being linked. Obviously, we've got the Sarmiento line deal coming across the line from Brighton. That's going to be a $5 million deal. That'll be done very soon. We're waiting for Sarmiento to have his medical. Another one that I can reveal to you today, and Ted's going to like this one, is Tommy Watson on loan from Brighton. Now, Tommy Watson obviously had a fantastic season with Sunderland last year in the Championship. Then he obviously moved to Brighton in the summer. Hasn't had any first-team chances as much as he probably would have liked. Only 19 years old, but did fire the winning goal to get Sunderland into the Premier League and is now looking for a loan back down to the Championship, we believe, and we believe Middlesbrough are highly interested in that one. So watch this space for Tommy Watson. Steve, before we get to Troll of the Week, mate, Newcastle transfers, massive week. We've heard PSR. Eddie Howe doesn't like the word, any other word but PSR. Are Newcastle going to do anything this week, Steve? Hot off the press, mate. Reveal it to the fans that are sitting there saying, bring me Messi.
No.
Oh my gosh. Newcastle to stay exactly the same, right here from the rose-tinted man in Steve Wraith. I tell you, it's going to be an interesting week for Middlesbrough because obviously sitting in second as well is the time to strike. We saw Sunderland last season strike with Enzo Laffi. What a scout signing that turned out to be. Middlesbrough can really make a massive week. There are some outgoings. We do look like Severe Nipan, who is on loan from Man City. He might return due to limited first-team chances. We know Delano Bergzorg is going to be sticking around now, Borough fans. But we also look for the likes of Mackay Hamilton and some other youngsters fringe players that might have to be moved out to make room for the likes of Tommy Watson and potentially Sarmiento, two wingers as well, which Kim Helberg has identified we just don't have. We've never played with wingers under Carrick for the 3 years, and even before that under Chris Wilder, we just didn't have any wingers. That never really were a team that played with wingers, and now Kim Helberg wants to have that in his side. So look for that this week in a massive transfer week, and especially Sunderland as well. I do think there's going to be a lot of movement for Sunderland as well. But let's sit back, let's relax, let's take our hats off, and let's have a bit of a laugh because it's time for Troll of the Week.
And breaking news, the Donald has obviously been trying to invade Greenland. Well, there has been a Greenland problem sorted, which is great news. And it is getting quite cold in the northeast, chaps. And this is how cold it is outside currently. And the CEO of IKEA has just been appointed as the Prime Minister of Sweden. He's currently assembling his cabinet.
I don't want to see another IKEA box.
Good news as well for music fans. Madonna has hinted a possible tour late in 26-27 with new music expected. And Crystal Palace have called for an immediate replay against Macclesfield Town in the FA Cup because one of the plumbers in midfield isn't gas safe registered. Talking of Crystal Palace, they are busy looking for a new manager in the near future when Glasner leaves.
Get him off ice.
And Joshua Jones pointed out some interesting trivia this week. Eric Cantona, no Ballon d'Or, Champions League, World Cup or Euro trophies. He's also not on the list of top scorers or top assisters in the Premier League or the Champions League. And he ended his career at 30. He's just an average footballer. And somebody who isn't an average footballer is this man. At 40 years of age, Arjen Robben completed a 15 kilometres race in just 55 minutes and 1 second. At 16 kilometres an hour pace. Absolutely insane.
Incredible.
Get him signed on. Yeah. We do like these Euro trips. Always some great bar service out there. Credit to this guy who made his way through the crowd without dropping a pint. And this guy is going to get some coverage on this show. A Lego building competition has been part of Liam Rossenoir's team bonding plan since he took over as Chelsea head coach. He believes it offers fun, a relaxed way for players to connect and be creative off the pitch. He's also got people walking around like this. Tell me what that is. It's absolutely bonkers. That's what it is. People at the training ground actually been forced to wear signs on their head. Absolutely bizarre. That's really, really bizarre. Anyway, Sean said, sometimes I get a bit fed up with increasing greys, but you look at Gerrard's botched hair dye job and it feels better about just leaving it. And Gary Neville is either there to commentate or there to be a fan. Him backing away from his microphone to celebrate a goal, but still being very audible to the audience is awful. I've noticed that many times. Somebody sent me this picture this week, which is brilliant. This apparently was on a nature walk in Middlesbrough. That's actually a replica. That's a replica of the Riverside ground.
It is, yeah.
Which you can find, which is bizarre. They should go and tidy that up, right? Maybe do it when you're next over here.
I'll grab it. Bring it home.
Bring it home. And Mike said, I can't even speak Dutch, but I instantly know what this guy's on about. Yes, die trappen in Newcastle, SEN, meteen hun all. Basically, what he's saying is the stairs are bloody massive. Fans. Yeah, exactly. And for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, here's the toilet in the away end. Been a big media court case this week when a court sketch of Prince Harry ended up with John Hartson as Prince Harry and Alan Carr as the judge. And this went viral this week. That dad there actually took his son's chicken nuggets at the match. The kid was absolutely foaming. Dad just doesn't look apologetic.
Get your own.
Ever. Davy Drew, this was brilliant. FFS, he says, this effing hotel is on the Isle of Effin White, and now I've got to go and check in and then get the ferry back. It's 11 miles from Pompey, my backside. And the offside rule explained to women.
We're cancelled.
Manchester United still making the news, lads. Another rat caught at the Manchester derby.
Oh my
Unbelievable.
God.
It needs to be closed down, that place.
Thought Isaac was injured.
I know. Tell me how we've got spent £56 million. Most of it's add-ons that only kick in if we're successful or hit milestones. And yes, as a fan of 36 years, it's a massive fairy tale. The money's big, but it's still a fairy tale compared to 5 years ago when we didn't have a pot to piss in. Yes, a fan of 36 years. Meanwhile, 3 years ago, been a United fan for 33 years, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't more interested. Yeah, I love it when people get caught out. Absolutely brilliant. And what's the difference between Bonnie Blue and Wolf season? Tony replied, one is absolutely disgusting, an embarrassment to the nation with zero morals or identity, allowing thousands of men weekly to queue up for hours to enter a soulless hole in the hopes of getting themselves some praise and attention. The other is Bonnie Blue. And in a small world full of negativity, lads, it's great to see this woman who didn't have any money for the bus come to an agreement with the bus driver by simply helping him to tie his shoelaces for a free ride. Fair play. I honestly don't get enough of that these days.
No.
The hero of the week, which is a late entry, lads, is a guy called Farai Halam. And well done to you, mate. You're a hero of the week because this guy overturned a decision by VAR. And after the VAR review, he retained the on-field decision of no penalty to Man City because the ball hits the arm of the Wolves player, which is a natural position, so the on-field decision will remain. Well done, that man.
It was
quality.
crazy.
We need more refereeing like that. And just a special mention to those who refereed them and were linesmen at the Champions League game. They were excellent, brilliant, superb. More of that, please, in the referee world and less of what we're seeing in the Premier League. But thanks everybody for sending them in. Send it to the lads on their social medias or NUFC Matters 1892 at gmail.com.
Ted, I've taken a leaf out of Liam Rosenoir's his training strategy where they stick things on their head. So I'm going to do the rest of the show with something stuck on my head just to help the fans get along. For those that can't read, it says Ted Smells. This is thank you to Liam Rosenoir or Rosewater for those playing at home. Welcome back to Three's a Crowd podcast, the only podcast in the Northeast where we bring Newcastle, Sunderland and Middlesbrough fans together to have a bit of banter and have a bit of laugh. We have got a massive game to talk about. It's back onto Newcastle taking on Aston Villa. This is going to be massive. Don't beat around any bushes today, Steve. All right. I know you love a good bush. Now, I want you to know I want to know, right, today, why Newcastle are going to get up against Aston Villa, mate, because obviously Sunderland dropped points yesterday. We saw the chance again to extend the gap, which everyone was talking about in the chat. But we also want to talk about, obviously, Newcastle's form in the Champions League, coming back to the Premier League, and why they can carry that form into the Premier League. Aston Villa obviously sitting in third. You've had a bit of a cheeky little, I don't know, spout with Aston Villa over the past couple of seasons. Aston Villa obviously doing very, very well under Unai Emery. It's going to be a very fantastic battle, but how do you personally see this one playing out? You weren't too optimistic against Wolves. Has the Champions League result given you any optimism for today against Aston Villa?
It has, because it's 20 years since Aston Villa won at St James's Park, and this is a fixture traditionally which Newcastle win on a regular basis. It's away at Villa Park where we tend to struggle. So history is on our side, and that's the first thing. They are struggling with injuries in their midfield. They've lost some pretty key players. No Ross Barkley, no Boubacar Kamara, and no John McGinn. And also Alisson and Martinez also rated doubtful. So this is a good chance to play Villa. It's a good time to play Villa. And Newcastle's walking wounded have started to return, albeit very slowly. Tino Livramento and Fabian Schär still out, along with Emil Kraft and Jamal Lascelles. Jacob Murphy, William Asula and Dan Burn are all close to return. Dan Burn's probably more likely to be on the bench today, with Murphy and Asula maybe not making it until the Champions League game. But it's, it's starting to look a little bit brighter for Newcastle on the injury front. Joe Linton's back to his best form over the last couple of weeks. Brilliant against PSV midweek as well. Probably up there with Lewis Hall as man of the match. And he'd be looking to make his 250th competitive appearance for Newcastle United today as well. Also, 1 day rest extra. I mean, I always laugh when we go on about these kind of things. But, Newcastle did play Wednesday. Aston Villa, of course, played Thursday. They had a hell of a result. They beat Fenerbahce 1-0 in Turkey. Never easy to go to Turkey against any team and get a result, but they did. And after that game, they had a little bit of transfer business following the completion of a loan exit to Roma for striker Doniel Mail, and Unai Emery recalled the winger Leon Bailey. So he is in the squad for today's game. The referees often play a big part in these games for us. We've had some horrendous officials this season, and it's the best a man can get again. Jared Gillette, the Aussie. Yes, he's back. Last time he was at St James's Park, we lost 2-1 to Arsenal. So but he's not bad. He's not a bad referee for us. He's not a bad referee. VAR is John Brooks. But yeah, look, I'm more confident about this game. It was because of Wolves' upturn in form that I predicted a draw last week, and because Newcastle's away form has been poor. Our home form has been excellent. And with the exception of the Man City Carabao Cup game, we've got an unblemished record in the Premier League. So I would expect that to continue today, especially with Aston Villa having problems with their midfield and Newcastle's midfield being on fire at the moment, certainly in the Champions League. They do have to take that into the Premier League, but I am fancying Newcastle for 3 points today to extend their the gap which is starting to develop now between that top, middle and bottom. Newcastle really can take advantage of Sunderland's loss and Liverpool's defeat and temporarily anyway put themselves up into the top 4, top 5 positions. And look, it's a key set of fixtures now. Newcastle are playing their rivals. We've got Liverpool next weekend, out of the frying pan into the fire. PSG before that, of course, on Wednesday. But we're looking at these games, and Eddie will be taking them and treating them each as cup finals. So we've got to win our home games. That's what's going to keep us in and around those European places. But I am going for a Newcastle United win on this occasion. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win today.
You're going to be very interesting. Teddy boy, Newcastle taking on Aston Villa. Eddie Howe, Newcastle boss, said that football is played on the pitch, not with the money, when he was asked if the Premier League no longer feels like a closed shop, if the teams with the bigger wages will always win. Interesting comments going into this one. Newcastle taking on Aston Villa, mate. Yeah,
he's right to say it, but it's almost pointing at the obvious, really, isn't it? Listen, it's been a season where, like we said before, anyone can beat anyone. Villa's form the start of the season they had was absolutely abysmal. But here we are. We're talking about them being third in the Premier League. So it's amazing how things can quickly turn around. And Newcastle obviously sat in ninth, I believe, at this moment in time.
Yeah.
And as Steve's pointed out, a win today propels you up into fourth or fifth place. It's mad how quickly it turns around, to be honest. It's not going to be an easy game, even with the players missing. They've got some absolute quality in the ranks, and obviously the ex-Borough player Morgan Rogers is one of them that's really shone this season. I think he's evolved as a player. I think he looks bigger, stronger. I think he's got a good bit of skill about him. He's just turned into a really, really good player. So I think he could cause problems. They've got people. Leon Bailey, like Steve's mentioned, has come back in from his loan spell. He's got absolute pace to burn, so he could cause your defence a few problems as well. That being said, Newcastle's form, and I watched the game against PSV. It was never in any doubt. And as much as the left-sided centre-back for PSV did absolutely everything he could to hand everything on a plate, Newcastle in that game, Newcastle did look really good. I thought Anthony Gordon had a bit more about him than what he's shown so far this season. He looked a bit more like his old self. Botman as well, I thought was in good form. Handled most things. Joe Linton, like Steve said as well, I thought was a real handful. He's one of those midfield players that you just don't like coming up against because he's a big lad. He's got something about him. Obviously, his passing's very, very good. But he's just nasty, and you need that. And I think certainly at home to make that place a fortress, like what we've done in the Premier League as well, you've just got to have that bit of bite. And I think that's where Newcastle probably edge Villa out today. I think Villa will get on the score sheet, mind you. I quite fancy Morgan Rogers to get one there. I just see Newcastle edging this one out 2-1.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 to Newcastle. I just think at home they're just very impressive. And I think coming off that massive Champions League victory as well, I think they're just going to be buoyed a bit. And I think they can really stick one to the top half of the Premier League today and just shake things up as in classic Newcastle form. We have got one more game to talk about. I am mindful of time. I do apologise, Ted. And we do apologise. We have got Ted coming back in a couple more weeks where he'll be settled in and we'll be back to 1 hour shows. But we are trying to wrap them up very quickly these coming weeks, just so we can look after our Teddy Mackems. But we do have to quickly talk about PSG Newcastle because that's the last game for our three Northeast clubs into January. Newcastle will play PSG on Wednesday night. It's going to be Thursday morning my time. And then Middlesbrough and Sunderland won't face off until the 1st of Feb. Can't believe it. The January month is done, lads. We can't believe it. No more football for Sunderland or Middlesbrough, but Newcastle will have today and obviously a midweek game. PSG away, Steve. I do believe you're heading to that one. Is that correct?
No, I'm not going to that one, mate.
No, you're not going? Okay, sorry. I do thought you were going to that one. How do you see that one going, mate? PSG, obviously, powerhouses in the Champions League market. It's going to be a fantastic affair. I'm really excited to watch this one. Honestly, I just want to see Newcastle really battle it out with the likes of PSG.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a huge game for us because, Newcastle, if they could win against the current holders, then it's great because Newcastle would then find themselves, into the latter stages without having to play 2 playoff games. But if we can get a draw and we end up, wherever we end up in the league, it then depends on where you finish and who you play and when you play. But it's such a strange competition. They've changed it. It's is it changed for the better? I really don't know. But it's all about money and it's all about TV and advertising, isn't it, these days? It's not about the football teams or the fans. But for me, it's a great opportunity for Newcastle to play against one of the best teams in the world at this moment in time. And we know what happened, when we played them previously. We managed to get a wonderful win at home at St James's, and we were robbed by the officials when we played them away. So it's an opportunity though to go there, put a marker down, say that we aren't just competing here for the sake of it. We're actually putting a marker down and saying this is Newcastle United and this is what we can do in the Champions League. So look, PSG won't be taking us lightly. I think a lot will depend on what happens, of course, today. Newcastle win today. They go with their tails up, and they go into that game with, hopefully with, with no more injuries. And there's always a chance in football. There's always a chance. They aren't unbeatable. We've already beaten them in the last couple of years. Yes, it is a slightly different team now, of course. But yeah, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm not going to say that Newcastle will lose that game. I think we've got more than enough to do something out there. I'm going to go for an entertaining 2-2 draw.
Ooh, it's going to be very interesting. I was going to go 1-1. I just can't predict it. I just think Newcastle are going to absolutely rise for this occasion. Teddy boy, PSG, the last Northeast fixture after we've already played. Now it's going to be PSG at home on a Wednesday night, mate, against Newcastle United. Very, very interesting.
They're just the French Stoke, aren't they? Quote me on that. Yeah,
Tony Poulas.
Le Potter. Yeah, listen, it's going to be a tough game. They are the current holders, and they're there on merit, of course. I don't see Newcastle getting turned over in this whatsoever. I think it'd be a lot closer than certainly what the pundits are making out it's going to be. I just see them slightly getting edged out. I think a Dembele goal just before he leaves and joins Sunderland in the transfer window. And yeah, just a 1-0 to PSG. But honestly, I've got to take my hat off to Newcastle. I'm not going to physically do it because my hair's a mess. Their Champions League season so far has been very, very good. They've pulled out some excellent results. So you've got to give credit where credit's due.
No, it's been a fantastic ride in the Champions League, that's for sure. And I think it's going to continue for Newcastle United fans. Good luck if you are going to today's game at St. James's Park against Aston Villa. Newcastle will have 2 more games in January. Middlesbrough and Sunderland are done. That means we have got 1 week to finalise our squads. Middlesbrough fans, I know we haven't spoken a lot about Middlesbrough. We have tried to wrap things up quite quickly, but it's been a massive, massive performance under Kim Hellberg. We're sitting second. Ipswich lost yesterday against Sheffield United, which absolutely clears us of 5 points in second position. We are 3 points better off than the Leeds United team that were here last year, and they obviously won the league with Burnley. Now, it's going to be an excellent, excellent run if we can continue that home form. We've got a couple more home games before we go back to away. No cups, no nothing to worry about. It's just league fixtures. This week is going to be massive. I do believe you're going to see Jeremy Sarmiento in, definitely, and I think you will see 2 to 3 outgoings. Teddy boy, you think if you could predict 1 player out, 1 player in for Sunderland?
I think we'll see Isidore out. Do you know what? The way our recruitment team works, we've seen plenty of rumours, but it will be just a complete surprise who we bring in. I cannot predict who we'll bring in at all, mate.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I've got full faith in them, which is, considering when we first started doing this together, lads, and how much little time I had for Christian Speakman at the time,
and Michael Beale.
I got it wrong. Full trust in whoever we bring in.
It's going to be an interesting week. Steve, do you see any outgoings? I know you've said no incomings for Newcastle. Do you see any Newcastle United players leaving this week?
We've had a few fringe players go. I think if you're talking about people who would be considered still first team candidates, I think Jamal Lascelles is one to watch, maybe as a departure, and it doesn't look like he's going to get any action at all this season. And maybe if incomings, I just don't see it. I think Eddie's already nailed that flag to the mast. To the mast. I don't think there's anybody going to come in. If there is, it'll be a young player, a development player. But it would be very surprising if that happened. I think Tino Livramento's injury is it's not as serious as it could have been, and Fabian Shaw's due to return in April. I think had they been season-ending injuries, and I think we might have seen Newcastle move. But yeah, I don't see it. Is there a question mark over Will Asula? He nearly left in January. He nearly left in the summer. Could he leave in the January window? I think Eddie will be keen to keep a hold of him because we've got a busy fixture schedule this season. So I think he'd want to keep him. But yeah, Will Asula, would Newcastle get tempted to sell him? That possible as well. But I think Jamal Lascelles is the only one who I could see going out.
It's going to be an interesting week. Obviously, Newcastle 2 games. Good luck to you all there. Sunderland, Middlesbrough, take a breather. The January window will close before we play our next game. We will have our finally set squads to bring this season home. Newcastle will be playing a Champions League game against PSG on Wednesday. Sunderland are sitting in 10th. Can they finalise a massive, massive push in this Premier League season with a good January end to their window? The likes of Xhaka, is their summer rebuild pretty much done all their work for them, leaving them pretty happy where they are? Middlesbrough fans, we're in second. We are daring to dream under Kim Hellberg. We have got nothing to lose and everything to play for this run home. If we can add a couple more astute signings, we can join these two big boys in the Premier League next season. And what a show it's going to be right here with 3 Northeast teams potentially in the Premier League next season. Sunderland, Newcastle, Middlesbrough fans, we love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you check out at Ted the Mackham, at NUFC Matters, or at Inrictus for your respective clubs' thoughts and wishes. And make sure, West Ham fans, if you want Ted's address, just DM me and I'll send it to you straight away. He's just moved as well. So I have to update you on that one. Take care of one another. Be kind to another one. Good luck to Newcastle fans at St. James's Park this afternoon against Aston Villa. We'll be watching that one. We'll be back next week for another Three's a Crowd. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think of the show, and we will see you all next time right here on Three's a Crowd.
Three's a Crowd podcast will return. That's not a threat. It's a promise.